Now, may we invite all speakers back in front for our Q&A session.
Good afternoon. My name is Rolly Olifino from PNOC Exploration Corp. One is that according to Director Abad, after 2001, actually there were several wells that were drilled in the country. I think PNOC was involved in 8. But unfortunately, those wells that were drilled were not successful. Secondly, on the use of natural gas, there were studies in the past related to what we call the initiative of DOE, which we call the Batangas to Manila Gas Pipeline. One of the major market for the pipeline are the eco zones. So meaning to say, we can also this was delegated to by the DO to PNOC Mother holding company. So I guess we can, we can learn from those experience of that project why that project did not push through or was unsuccessful. Third is that the use of natural gas or compressed natural gas for transport was initially initiated by Fisher, BOST, way back in 2008. We put up a CNG station in Isabela, and also some of the vehicles of DOE were converted to CNG powered from diesel. Next, this was also a natural gas vehicle program for public transport initiated by DOE, and then also conducted by a holding company, PNOC. It was also unsuccessful in the sense that you mentioned that there were 250 buses that should be operating for that project to be economically viable. During our time, it was 200, not 250. But the problem then was only about 34 buses out of the 200 buses that were committed I think there was LTFRB or DOT during the time. Only 34 CNG buses were given franchises. That's a problem on that CNG for transport project. So maybe we're quite interested in the economics of pushing through with this or reviving this using natural gas CNG for public transport. So hopefully you can next time, or maybe now you can what they call share some numbers if this is really feasible, because during the time the gas price because the gas is coming from Malampay, of course, the gas price was highly subsidized. I think it was less than 50% of what we're selling to the power stations. Thank you.
Thank you for that question, sir. First off, as compared to the 34 CNG buses, if I remember correctly, the 250 CNG vehicles that we mentioned on our presentation is just an arbitrary assumption. So that's what we base our economic financial analysis from. And to probably discuss more about the specifics of this financial analysis, I am joined again by my co-fellows, Engineer Bemboy Sobosa and Ma'am Thea Baltazar over Zoom. So I think, JCAT, the engineer, would they be able to also give their thoughts on the concern?
Yes. So we have the economic team over the Zoom.
Yes. Good morning. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Good morning. This is Thea, and sir, thank you so much for your question. So, in our economic analysis or financial analysis for the CNG transport application, the 250 bus units are just is just an arbitrary number, just for assumption. But when it comes to the successful rollout of a project, we noted that the initial LNG EPT project had some major hiccups when it comes to supply for the natural gas, because natural gas was initially directed to power applications. So this is also similar to other case studies in, like for example, in Jakarta or in Canada, where the seamless rollout of a project could be delayed by, for example, lack of refueling stations. So that could be a major factor here. And of course, the supply directed to the transport sector. So, well, in the literature, they describe this as a chicken and egg problem, where fuel station owners investments would depend on market potential and of course customer preferences. But then also the customers or those that would buy the natural gas vehicles would see sufficient fuel station coverage as a precondition for them buying a natural gas vehicle or a natural gas bus in this matter. So yeah, those two factors are essential in the successful rollout of a project. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Thea. Have we answered the question, sir? All right, thank you, Sir Rolando, for the question. So, do we have any? Yes, sir.
My name is Captain Roy Watson of Samak LNG. We have done a study regarding bus transportation. We believe that an LNG powered bus, LNG, not CNG, powered bus, can go on one fill of 400 litres tank for 800 kilometres. Therefore, our study indicates where we will place filling stations. The cost of an LNG bus is approximately 35% more than a standard bus. The buses are available, Europe is using them all the time. If you do a study on cost as against diesel, you will find that under normal conditions of LNG pricing, there is a 25 to 30% saving just on the fuel. So we are hoping that our friends in DOE would help us with an initiative to move into this transport sector. Our project will be on stream in 2024, and we feel, and it's a small project designed for transportation, manufacturing and small IPP players. We feel that we will be in a very strong market to instigate this trial of maybe 200, 250 buses for provincial use. Thank you.
So, sir, do you have clarification, or are you just sharing thoughts?
We have our own internal study, and we can share that when we get the right people who are willing to discuss this project. And as I said earlier, I would like to hope that the DOE would create an incentive for the large provincial bus owners to enter into such a trial.
Well, for the Samat case, finally, sir, I've seen you in person. So, first we have to deal with your application for notice to proceed for the small scale LNG regasification project. Um, I know we have not yet provided a regulation on a downstream areas of market for LNG, which goes now as low as transport. Even the law there, actually, the Senate version of the law is only up to the midstream, so transmission line, no distribution line yet. So it's a challenge, but let's see, let's discuss that. And we hope to learn also from your experience on how we can probably fill up the lacking regulatory framework. As you mentioned, incentives for these areas of market, these areas that is really on the retail level of marketing LNG. So again, we will learn from your experience. Probably the PDNGR now is not, well, it's an open rules. It can accept any type of market for LNG or use for LNG. However, there is, unfortunately, there's no specific rules there talking about transport. So this is very new to us. So we will be really learning more and more as we move on towards developing the industry in the Philippines.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Abad, and thank you, Mr. Watson, for raising your concern. Yes? Yes, ma'am. Kindly state your name, affiliation, and
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Alicia Reyes from the Department of Energy. What are your thoughts then about hybrid LNG buses? I was just thinking maybe this will go for farther destinations and maybe need less infrastructure in terms of gas stations.
Yeah, for hybrid, we have not tackled that in our study because we have zeroed in on the fully fueled natural gas. So, but certainly, hybrid vehicles are also an option, especially that we are also transitioning to a different fuel, and CNG fueling stations are not prolific yet in the Philippines. So that could also be a case for further study. Thank you.
all right. Thank you again, Ms. Thea, and thank you, Ma'am Alicia. So, do we have any more questions or concerns, clarifications about? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm Engineer Edwin Delgado from DESCO. I would like just to share, for example, the topic always discussed is combined cycle power plant for ecozone. Is it for ecozone? Because for ecozone, combined cycle power plant is quite big, and the smaller the size of this combined cycle, it's more expensive. So based on our study, we also made a study. It's more on to make the natural gas feasible. It's more on combined heat and power or cogeneration. We made a lot of study already, meaning cogeneration, heat and power, combined heat and power, CHP, or combined heat and cooling, or combined heat and fresh water, or combined heat and combined power and CO2, liquid CO2 generation. So trigeneration, quad generation. We already made the study, we already made the proposal, and it's feasible with this study. Of course, we're just waiting for the fuel. And of course, right now, just sharing again, the downstream value chain, meaning you deliver the LNG, the receiving station for small scale, receiving station, LNG tank, vaporizer, compressor or blower, power plant, CHP are already complete and readily available locally. The LNG tanks, small tanks can be locally fabricated. I'm just sharing this to everybody. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you, Engineer Delgado, for the valuable insight. Do we have any more questions?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Krista Rayos del Sol. I'm from Luzon LNG Terminal A. Yeah. My question is, during your presentations, there is a mention of cost competitiveness and decarbonization as a benefit for companies to switch to natural gas, specifically those that are in the eco zones, or even on the transportation application. I just want to ask if there is a incentive, or at least in order to promote the switching of natural gas, in their goal, I guess, to decarbonize their operations. Are there like incentives that are being taken into account that can be granted to these companies in order to promote that switching, or anything at all on that regard?
We have actually only been basing our information on the decarbonization from recent studies, but as for having them implemented by local companies, or like the companies we have here in the Philippines, I don't think we have thought about it yet, but perhaps Director Rino can have some thoughts on incentivizing the switching of gas to LNG.
I know this is not a direct answer to your question, but probably this will trickle down to these users. First and foremost, importation of LNG in the Philippines is tax-free. So we do not have duties. It's not part of the item included in the train law. So while we have excise taxes for gasoline, diesel, LNG has none. So just imagine, for a liter of gasoline, you will be charged by 10 peso for the excise tax alone, and you will have an additional more or less 9 peso for value-added tax. So this time, basically you will just be taxed internally, not upon entry of imported LNG by the value-added tax, based on the ultimate sales price of your gas. But there's no duties or even excise tax. So definitely this will trickle down to those consumers who will be paying less for their fuel in terms of tax. As to the direct question on whether there's an incentive to switch, we are not really sure of any item, but definitely these locators that are already located in these eco zones are already receiving incentives. It was only rationalized with the CREATE law, but of course the CREATE law only improved, when you say rationalized, only improved the accreditation of these locators by providing, they call it the contribution-based, economic contribution-based accreditation, meaning those that actually contributes to the economy in the Philippines are the one accredited to avail of the incentives. But these are granting the company that's about to switch is already availing these incentives from tax and non-tax incentive in eco zones. Then I think switching will not somehow matter to them because either they use diesel or coal, as long as they're accredited by the Department of Finance, or there's a council now, I think, that provides for the criteria and being implemented by PISA, for example, then you are now actually availing of the incentives, whether or not you're using LNG. So I'm not sure if what do you think would be would be additional incentive that would an investor look for when you are already availing incentives in ecozones and you are not being taxed or you're not paying duties for the fuel, for the LNG itself. So it's a peculiar case, right? So it's not a usual case that you look into switching as a criteria for incentive. It is really more of the criteria there is more of a pioneering industry. That's why, well, the purpose of incentive is for the government to assist you, right? It's not, there has to be a sunset clause always for incentives. It's not there for you to avail it forever. The incentive is for you to be able to get a hold first of the Philippine market, and then when you're more than capable to navigate the market financially, whatever, regulatory, framework-wise, now you graduate from incentives. So yun lang po that's I think is the proper perspective for incentive. And there's already there being provided for by Create Law. And the Train Law has exempted the duties and excise tax for importation of LNG.
Director, can I add to your point of indirect incentives or taxation? I think part of the fiscal consolidation plan of the next administration is to impose carbon taxes. They're considering imposing carbon taxes. So that's in a way, like Director Rino said, it's like an additional excise tax on but definitely some of the fuels may be hit more than others. So right now we have a coal tax, but it's not being applied to other carbon emitting fossil fuels. So if that plan will push through to implement a carbon tax, that will create another sort of incentive, if you put it that way, to switch to cleaner fuels like natural gas.
Thank you, Director Rino, Dr. Carl, and Engineer Paul, and thank you, Ma'am Del Sol, for the eye-opening question. So, do you have any questions? Any further concerns, clarifications from the presentations? Alright, if there is none, so we have to wrap up the Q&A session here. Thank you all for your questions, and we thank all our speakers as well for imparting your knowledge and expertise on the sector.